So this idea we just did over there, because somebody was asking about. Now, we probably already talked a little bit about this. I tend to pull my pencil when I'm doing things like this. Does that make sense? Because I don't want it to be, and then when I'm doing things like foliage or grass or something, I can serrate it a little bit. This is a versatile tool, so I want to use it to make all sorts of different types of marks, right? So the same idea, I gotta get my hands warmed up, sorry. I'm always for crap before I warm up. Now, notice what I'm doing. I'm doing this.
It's like you are drawing and painting at the same time.
That's exactly right. But that is a nice smooth gradation, right? People are always doing this. Okay, I'll cross hatch it. Well, that's not working, so now, they always, for some reason, they always go to this. They start just making these random marks, then they do this. Okay, that's a mess, okay? Don't smudge right now. We'll get into that a little bit. You know, I'll show you a good way to use it. Okay, now here I'm gonna put a branch in here. Maybe I'll have one come out like that. Oops. And this would probably come out a little more. And then I would do my, now I can just do it sort of the way Jackie's doing it, where she's sort of breaking it this way, which I think is a really smart thing to do. And you're not doing anything yet, and you're starting to a little bit get a tree. And we haven't done anything, okay? Might go a little darker. I want to make sure I cover up that branch here and there. What just went off? Oh, okay. Teleprompter. I don't use a teleprompter. You know, but I just build it. Does that make sense? Now, down here, you know, I might do some random.
Why did you change the direction of your shading
This?
at this part?
I wasn't thinking about it.
Oh, okay.
What I really should have done is what I said before. I probably should have brought it in this way and sort of have the whole thing. Because I'm always thinking about rhythm.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I want to cover up some of these branches. Then here, because there's a canopy here, I could go a little darker here. You know, this needs a little more information as far as leaves go. I want to break some of those leaves off. If I put I could come in here and go, there's a bunch of something back, you know, shrubs or something back here, and I could now come in here, keep this fairly light. And just have a nice little silhouette back there. And I can use that sort of as a graphic element. Does that make sense? I could put some more ground texture here. This is the stuff that used to trip me out because I go, well, there's nothing there. You know what I mean? I'd put a little grass breaking where that whatever you call it, tree hits the ground. I might bring a root down in here. But I'm not gonna have the root just be flat because it's hitting this, right? And then I might put some textural ideas on here. Like if I'm doing a branch, it's too fat. Again, I'm using that darker value, that little core shadow, to break it. Does that make sense? I don't like that. You know, and then I can pull some of these.
Can you also show us how you would do the coconut tree later, like something like that? With
Yeah, when we go on location, I'll start hitting all those things.
Okay.
But like something, when I say looking for the logic of something, if I'm looking at, oh, I have one up there. Let me show you that. Shit, where did that go? I have something up there. Let me show you on the screen. When I'm looking at something like a palm tree, I'm going, okay, there's this, the dead stuff here.
Yeah.
Then there's a central point, because I want to find the logic of it. There's a central point here, and everything radiates out from that central point, correct?
Yeah.
So I have to think about that. And then what happens here, if we're talking about a standard one, you got these triangular shapes at different angles and things. This one might come down this way backwards. Might be one this way. Might be one this way. And you're already, just from a geometric point of view, getting palm tree, okay? Why? Because I figured out it's a spoke and hub thing. So it's a spoke and like a wheel, okay? But there's gravity, so then everything starts dragging, okay? Then, if I look at that, I'm gonna pull some more of this down here. I'm gonna start breaking that. So already now we've broken the silhouette, which looks better already. Then these things are these things, because they just die and they go like that, right?
Yeah.
So they're laying over each other like that, okay? So I can come in here and I can sort of just do this, because that's what they're doing. There's a serrated edge here.
That's like for.
Yeah, you see that? Mark making, correct?
Yeah.
It's mark making. You know, and then I can go lights over there, so I'm gonna just start getting something going. You know, sometimes they have a pattern on here. Okay, and then I can go, okay, these now are also coming down and sort of, it's sort of that kind of a thing, right? They just have this serrated bottom. If I just simplify it, I'm just simplifying. Does that make sense? You know, then these things, I just start plussing those up. They'd be longer, and I'd finesse them more. I have one up there I'll show to you. Does that make sense how I'm approaching that? What else was I gonna say? Oh, so when they get into the distance, they start doing this. Because you see this all the time. You just see this. You just see that silhouette, okay? But it's based on this idea. Now these I would have to finesse more, you know, and if I want to, and then also these can fold over on themselves, you know, where they could come up and fold over on themselves. Does that make sense? Okay. You know, if it's one of those other kind, it's more like that taco one up there. Okay. So this is the same idea as this, but what am I doing? I'm breaking down this thing into its logic. Okay. And the same thing, I have a drawing up there, I'll show it to you. Like on a, this kind doesn't have it so much, but like the shorter, squattier ones, let's say that's the trunk of one of those fatter ones, they'll have this, okay, so then I start thinking, okay, it's got volume, okay? And then I look at it and I go, how does this work? And it's like, oh, it goes sort of like that. And then this one comes up there. And as long as I keep wrapping these around, this is a weave pattern. That's all it is, right? And they interweave, and I'm making it up, so I'm probably a little off. Then they break this edge. And I don't have to put every one of them. I can put X amount of them. And then down here, maybe, I still keep doing that broken edge, but maybe down here it gets more textural. You know, I don't have to keep showing it. The point is, I'm wrapping this around the form. What people do is they just go, they make up all this stuff, like when they're doing this kind of thing, and they put the form, and they sort of go, they just make up this, like, don't do that. Don't make no random mark making. Everything needs to be thought through. Now, at some point, it'll feel like random mark making, but it never is, okay? Like when I'm warmed up and I'm doing this, I can just whip this stuff out. I'm not thinking about it at all. And it doesn't even feel like I'm drawing it, okay? Okay, does that make sense? And it's the same thing if you come into, you're doing an animal. Like, let's say this is an animal. Here's the head of it. Does that make sense? This still is the same idea where this has form. So if I start wrapping fur around it, that fur needs to wrap around that form. And also, as it goes under here and over here, as it rolls around, it's going to compress. And then it's going to dissipate. If you had basic design, and they talked about dissipation and gathering, that's sort of a dissipation and gathering thing. Because as it goes around the corner, it's going to compress. It's, you know, now you're not going to get the kind of perspective on it. Now, if it was a pattern, you know, like, and I'm going to make up a stupid Dr. Seuss pattern, but it could be a dog or whatever. You know, it's doing this, and it has let's say a roundish pattern. As it goes up here, it also is going to start to compress and stuff as it goes up around the form. You got to think about that. That's why people's drawings flatten out, because they don't think about that simple idea of wrapping around the form. It's like a 3D model, obviously, right? What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Were you going to show us how to do the stone patterns?
Oh, thanks. The trick with stone patterns, like if I have, back here there's a stone wall. People tend to go, okay, so here's something, and this is just me. I'm not one of those guys that goes, here's the only way you do it, and you do it like that. I'm not saying that. But I do think that they don't talk enough about handling your drawing tools or your painting tools enough. I tend to go from here, then to here, and then maybe to here. Sometimes all the way up to here. Sometimes I just go from here all the way up to here, right? But the point is I'm using where I place my hand on here at different levels of where I'm at in the drawing. So if I start the drawing, I'm here, usually. Even if it's I might be here. Even if it's a face or something like that, because I want to come in here and just be really loose. You know, and I do the same thing with it. Same thing when I was talking about with the trunks. You know, I do that. And then I try and, you know, basically sort of match it on this side. That looks much more natural than if I go in here and I go, you know, see, I get that wobbly BS line. That's a chicken shit line. That's what that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You don't want to have those kind of lines. And also, if you're trying to do a straight line and you're coming in here, you know, and doing this, you're just going to get wobbly. You got to come in here and just get a nice straight line. Or if you're doing a curve, when I'm on, I can just hit that over and over again. Okay? Okay, so people will come in with these things and they start drawing all these things. I tend to come in here and just go, And I can adjust this all I want. And then down here, this is going to be, again, grass hitting here. And it already feels a little more natural just doing that. Does that make sense? Then I apply the same logic to what we've been saying. My light's up here, going this way. Now I'm going to start coming in here and going, okay, I'm going to hit these sides of the rocks a little. And we can start using tone today, okay? But I got to see that line work, okay? If I don't see the line work, we're dead in the water. You got a dead line, it's no good. And then I can sort of go, sort of my same tree idea. I'm just going to break this light a little bit. Some of these will just change value altogether. I might go, I don't like it. I don't like any of that white in there, so I'm going to get rid of that. This is an overhang and it's away from the light. So now I can go this way. A lot of times I do it this way so I can get a shadow value in there like that. That's kind of nice. I want to go in here. Not going to be all precise with this because they're irregular surfaces. Some of them will just be darker, some will be lighter. Then I might come in here and just put a little bit of textural ideas on here. Then here, I got to sort of pull this in a little bit because that's not going to be a perfect edge like that. Because the stones are going to overhang, it's going to kind of do that, right? So I'm going to put another little stone here because it needs that to break that edge. Then I can come in here and just separate. I want to separate everything. And we're starting to get a nice little stone wall going. Now, when I turn it upside down, these three shapes are too similar. So I break up one of those shapes. I do that. Now, remember I just said I repeat shapes too much? Do you see that though? How that works? Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
The key to it is you're always starting off with this very loose idea. What happens with when people are, especially, again, entertainment design, because they're doing a lot of viscom. Another thing I do is where this, I think we talked about this, where this little crack happens, I'll go a little darker right there. Why? Because that's coming out from under, out of the dark, into the light. See how that just gave it a little more dimension?
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple, but it's, you know, it matters. And I could do the same thing back here, even though it's not really coming out of light, but it just gives it a little more dimension. I could give this a little bit of value. And this, I could even give a little core, that edge.
So when you are doing like a 1 hour drawing or
I hardly ever am. Unless it's a finished drawing. If it's a finished drawing, sure. I'm gonna do it long.
Oh,
you know.
okay. But will you still use this same method when you start out on that long drawing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This
So
is
you
what
can
that's a
still
good
build
that's
up,
a good
right?
question. Because here's
Yeah.
why. Because we're talking about this in the context of sketching.
Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, I can take, not my opinion, I can take any of these things I'm doing and take them as far as I want. But here's the thing, when I get to that finished level of whatever you want to call that, finished level of drawing or whatever, it's going to be natural and loose and it's going to feel good, right?
Yeah.
If I start, I'm doing a final drawing, that, it's just going to be this stiff. That's what you see all the time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, and by the way, it's important that you understand what a final drawing is,
Yeah.
okay? But it's like, it can be a lot of different things. For me personally, I don't like to see things where all the life's been squeezed out of it, okay? I can't stand that. I don't like stiff drawings. I don't like, I just don't like that, okay? It's not appealing. So there's a thing where I think people in their minds, and I think this is just common, they think, oh, it's gotta be really tight and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, no, it doesn't. I'm trying to get you guys to a level of like if I put that type of tree in a final drawing, it's totally fine.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Or this or whatever. If you look at a lot of sort of, you know, industry drawings, what do you want to call them? they're doing the same thing. Those things look, they're doing exactly what I'm talking about. They're doing editing, where they're making you think you're seeing a lot of stuff you're not seeing, okay? and you can see here, we're making a variety of things. None of them are, and I'm not saying this is easy, by the way, you guys. I don't want to sit here and go, oh, it's so easy. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's sort of like this Zen idea of like, you're trying to get to simplicity, but simplicity is very hard to get to,
Yeah.
okay? Now, another thing, if I could put,
So like a completed drawing doesn't mean that everything have to be like refined, right?
no, I don't think it should be. If you look at Adolf Menzel's drawings, man, do they look finished. And then you zoom in on them, you're like, it's a smudge, a mark,
Oh,
you know, it's nothing there.
okay.
And the guy was, you know, the guy was a monster. Weird little dude, but he was a monster. Okay, so now I put this little line here and here. Do you guys see that? Because now I'm gonna just use those points to come in here and create a little picket fence, or whatever this is called. And a lot of times if I'm warmed up, I'll do it this way. I'm always trying to keep everything super, I'm trying to force myself not to be able to get stiff and tight. Does that make sense? And then I'm probably gonna do that little trick I just said and go, you know, and then get this back in here. And then here. You know, and then I could come in here, put some kind of grain on there if I wanted to, but I wouldn't want to do it all over everything. You know, maybe this needs a little value. Why? Because this thing in front of it's lighter in value. And a lot of times I go over an edge like that. I don't care because I like to carve them back out, which is just a painting thing. I love to carve these edges because it gives me an interesting edge. See, now I'm using value to create that edge. I'm not putting a line.
Oh,
So if I can get a variety to, was you talking about hard and soft edges?
no. that's
Somebody
different.
was. That's a soft edge, right? As opposed to this, which is a harder edge. Now, I could also get rid of this line. I don't need it here either, as long as this light is there,
Oh, okay.
okay? Same thing here. You know, and then I could go, well, shit, I can push that even further. I could even push it selectively. I can go, well, just make it a little darker as it goes down here, if I wanted to. Or I can just keep pushing this, just push the value. Because that fence can be whatever color I want it to be. Carve out that edge. This is why I like pencil so much, it's just like painting.
I feel that you have so much control over your pencil that you can focus on your drawing.
I don't have to focus on it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, if I'm warmed up.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I'm like, oh, hey, just toss it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I've been doing this a long time, so a lot of it is just muscle memory. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Somebody just brought this up yesterday. Who was that? Was it you, the jazz thing? Somebody brought up
At a live
they
drawing.
brought up the idea of jazz, and they go, well, isn't that what you're kind of doing, sort of like jazz? I go, it's exactly what it is. I want to be good enough at this that I can just improvise. Okay? And I was talking about this guy I was watching, this jazz musician, because I used to go and draw jazz musicians every Thursday at this place, right? And the guy was flying, man, about halfway through the show. It's just unbelievable. You know, he's just on fire, and he's, you know, playing piano. You know, it was mind-blowing. And everything he was playing was musical. It wasn't just a display of dexterity. It was like very musical. He was playing over all these complex changes, but it was all musical, and he's just navigating this thing and flowing all over it. And I was going, God, that's insane. And that guy did his scales, probably went to college, learned all his boring stuff, and then went out and had the guts to go out and probably have to go, hey guys, can I sit in with you guys? A bunch of jazz guys who were notoriously hard to deal with if you're new. And they go, yeah, sure, kid, sit there. And you do it, and then they go, get out of here, man. You don't know what you're doing. And then he goes back and practices, you know. Then 40 years later, he's a veteran jazz musician, and now it's just like, it's all at his fingertips. And that's what I want this to be. I want it to be like, okay, I've studied my ass off of this stuff because I have, and I still am, because I want to be able to just make things up or be able to just look at something, and I want to get to the feeling of it, okay? So if I'm somewhere, like I just said, I'm in Paris, the window's open, I go, God, that's amazing. I want to capture that. And I'm not going to capture that if I'm just sitting there thinking about how I'm drawing it. I got to let go of that and just go, how do I, you just do it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Improvisation, okay? This makes sense? This makes sense? And then also with brick, by the way, the reason I put that line in there right away is I want to get myself some idea of dimensionality right off the bat, okay? Brick, let's put it real light. It's the same idea. Just going to put some light lines in here. Now, this isn't going to be a hard edge. It's going to be a little dip where the mortar is, correct?
Yeah.
So that's important, okay? And then I'm going to go probably not going to do the whole thing. Not just doing a line between everything, because a line between everything just says there's a hair there, there's distance there, there's mortar. And again, I'm not trying to make a documentary or anything, and then light's coming this way. And I'll start giving you a little bit of information, because this edge down here is going to get a little darker because that has dimension, it's popping out, the light's here. Same thing here, I'm going to come in here.
Also, how would you deal with like stone walls that have like flat stones laying on top, and then some vertical, some horizontal, and like?
It's just a different shape. It's the same idea.
Okay.
And the same thing here. I might, this could be one color brick, let's say. Now here and there, I'm going to darken this idea. By the way, notice I keep turning my board. Yeah? Why? Because I need to get the best angle. This needs to get darkened right there. This edge can go a little bit in shadow. This could go darker. This can go darker. So we're starting to get that nice little, just enough dimensionality, right? And then I can go, well, maybe it's one of those brick walls where there's different shades of brick in it. Some of them are that purpley red, some of them are brick red, some go a little orangey.
Some are the same.
Huh?
Maybe some of them have like a stain or something on it.
Sure, you can do whatever you want. This one should actually be following that perspective, which I didn't do. And then again, I'll just put some little hits of texture and things in here. And a little core on that edge. And that's probably enough. If it isn't, I'll bring it up. But what I want to do is get that done, and then I go, I probably already have my people in here or whatever. And then I pop that in, I go back to my people, and then I go, oh, okay, I need to bring that up a little bit. Because this doesn't go nowhere. When we get to people, which we're going to do very quickly, probably Middle Street, and then we'll be back in here, we'll go over people. I pop my people in here, and then I go, when I'm doing that, I go, well, that's not going anywhere. So I can fiddle with that long after they're gone. That's not going nowhere, that's not going nowhere, that's not going nowhere, that's not going nowhere. I focus on those people because they are going to go somewhere. Table's not going anywhere. And then I can just, bring everything up to the right level in relation to each other. Does that make sense? Questions on any of this? Okay, I think that's good.